Hey guys, thanks for joining me. About a year ago, I did a video on a Wi-Fi extender because I wanted to get better Wi-Fi access throughout the property. And I also wanted to get better access, Wi-Fi access within this utility barn that I have. But last year, my main goal was really to get Wi-Fi signal around the property and to some extent in the barn so I could at least do basic things like check email and get my IoT devices on the Wi-Fi network, on the 2.4 gigahertz network. And that extender worked really well for that. Since then, I've, as you can see, decided to build out a pretty sizable portion of this barn as a kind of a full-time workspace. So I'm going to be spending a lot more time in here. I'm going to climate control this. I'm going to install a mini split system. It's going to be very well insulated so I can keep this cool in the summer and warm in the winter. But as a result, I'm not going to have the Wi-Fi performance that I need out here with just that Wi-Fi extender. So I have a solution for that, and it's called a wireless point-to-point bridge. And it's probably what I should have installed to begin with, but let's go take a look at this wireless bridge and see how that might be a better solution for what I'm trying to do now. All right, so this is basically what you get in the kit. And by the way, the model number on this particular wireless bridge is CPE 469. And the reason I chose this particular model is because it is dual band. So it's not only just 5.8 gigahertz, but also 2.4 gigahertz. And the reason that was important to me to have the 2.4 gigahertz was because a lot of IoT devices like wireless security cameras, my power stations, anything that is kind of an IoT Wi-Fi connection, I like to connect to my IoT wireless network, which is 2.4 gigahertz. And so I needed for this to be able to pass that frequency through. So all of those IoT devices that I have out in the workshop and barn area will be able to connect. And so these actually come pre-paired with each other from the factory. And if I show you what's on the inside here, I took these little end caps off right here. And let me just kind of turn that around and zoom in for you. But you can see there's an A-B switch. And one of these is already switched to A, which will be the master that connects directly to your router, your main router. And then the other one will be switched to B, which is the sort of the satellite wireless point connection. And that one will have to connect to a separate router, which is why I also bought this guy. So this is basically another satellite of the mesh system that I already have installed here. So this is necessary because you have to have a way to get the network that comes in from this to your Wi-Fi devices. And so you need to connect it to another router, or in this case, a mesh satellite. And this should work fine, but we're gonna find out and verify how well it works. So just to kind of go over some of the pieces and parts here, this is obviously the two receiver and transmitter units, and they come with 4 of these large radiator clamp style clamps that you can use to clamp this down to a post. There's a couple of other smaller radiator clamps, I guess in case you're going to connect these maybe to these guys, but these are nice little arms that allow you to, you can remove this plate, but this plate kind of gives you a little notched out thing to set against a, a round post like this. But if you're going to connect it to, say, a 4x4 post or something like that, you can actually remove this plate and then just screw this, this bracket directly into that post. And they give you all of the stuff you need. So you got some wood screws with some anchors here if you're going to do it that way. They've also got a bunch of little cable tie down strain leaves here, which is nice, and a whole bunch of nice little screws. So again, everything that you need, even a couple of Cat 6 1 meter cables. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to use these. I'm going to probably want longer ones than this, but we'll see when we get into the implementation. Now, how do you get power to these? Well, if you've got an AC outlet somewhere nearby, you can use the included 2 power over Ethernet injector modules. So these connect into AC power, and then in this case, I think they output 24 volts. So you basically connect one to your network, and then the output goes to one of these guys, which is the PoE, power over Ethernet. Now, the other way that you can do it is that inside here, so this little port here on the end by my finger, this is a DC 5521, and this will take 12 volt input. So if you're going to use this, you don't need to use that external power port because you're getting power through the Ethernet cable, which is 24 volts. But if you don't want to use that, if you have a DC 5521 adapter somewhere, and I've got power stations all over the place with DC 5521s, finally a use case I can actually use them with, I can connect this directly to that. So these are the pieces and parts. Now I think all that's left really is to go get into the implementation. Now in the manual here, there's a ton of advanced features that you can get into. There's a little bit of a software interface, a little web server that you can get into to configure more advanced features. I think I'm just going to probably be able to plug and play. That's my hope anyway. So we will find out if in fact it works out that way. I'll take you along for the ride. Let's go see how it shakes out. All right, I am inside the barn here, and I have got the doors open. So let's do a speed check here using just my regular Wi-Fi coverage here. So without the wireless point-to-point bridge. And as you can see, with the doors open, I'm actually getting pretty good performance. So 91.1 megabits, that's download speed, and upload speed should be pretty similar. All right, 54 megabits upload. Those aren't stellar results, but they're certainly good enough results for me to work inside the barn if the doors are open. But quite often, especially when it's really hot out or when it's really cold out, I'm going to be inside the new climate controlled room with the doors closed. So let me go in here, and now that I've got the door closed, let me rerun this test. And since I'm going to be spending a lot more time out here, I need something at least as good as what I just got. And as you can see, I'm having trouble even connecting. So that connection drops off horribly once I shut that door. Now it looks like I made some kind of connection with a really long latency, and I'm not sure if it's even going to try to run. So just for kicks, literally, let me kick the door open, and let me reset this. Let it find a provider. Now with the door open, now I'm in the side tack room here, and it is going to be able to probably run the test now. We have a little bit better performance, but as you can see, even inside the room with the door open, I'm getting less than 10 megabits download speed. And I want to be able to edit video and upload video, watch videos, stream stuff, and 8 megabits download is just not going to be enough for me to do that reliably. And as you can see, I'm getting a similar number on the upload side, so probably around 8 megabits on the upload, 8.46. So this is the problem I'm hoping to correct with that wireless point-to-point bridge. All right, so this is my existing Wi-Fi extender, and I'm going to take that offline. I'm going to leave it mounted here, but I am going to repurpose the power over Ethernet cable that I currently have coming out of the bottom of that, so I don't have to run a new cable. But I think I'm going to put the Adalov wireless bridge master transmitter maybe on this corner. And the reason for that is one of the considerations you need with a device like this is you need good line of sight. For maximum performance, you want as good a line of sight as you can get. So because of the way this ground slopes off here and the relative height of this this deck, I think I'm going to plug or connect the plate for the mount. It'll be something like that, and I'll be able to angle this toward the receiver that'll be on the other end. And so I just need to find a suitable spot over by the barn, but I'm thinking that's going to be on one of those 3 posts there. That'll be an easy cable run to the inside to the mesh router on my workspace. All right, so let me go ahead and get the ladder out, get this thing mounted, reroute the power over Ethernet cable, then I'll put the one in the barn up, and we can get to seeing how this thing works. All right, got the main unit mounted, and I got it angled towards the barn, hopefully for clear line of sight. I'll finish cleaning up the cable once I've had a chance to get the other side installed, and then we can do a performance test. All right, I've got the barn receiver module mounted here. Now I mounted it on the sort of the side of the pole rather than the outside of the pole, just to give it a little bit more cover from the awning over top and just to get it away from that light. I needed to keep it somewhat low, I think, because I've got this angled, hopefully at just about the right angle, to be pointing right at the main transmitter module. So we're going to kind of have to test and see if that's sufficiently aligned. I suspect it probably is, because there's actually a pretty good spread, in terms of like a cone of signal this way. So I think we're going to be just fine. It doesn't have to be like laser precision in this case. And then I've sort of got the cable temporarily run right now, and that's some Cat6 cable, just some flat cable going up there and going into the workspace. Now eventually it will be in this workspace here, but I don't have this enclosed yet. So I just have this cable kind of awkwardly draped across here and going into my other enclosed space. All right, so let me go ahead and get my TP-Link Deco satellite unit connected up here. I'm going to use this little AC connector to do power over Ethernet in this case, rather than the DC5521 12-volt direct connect. All right, so I've got my little Deco router satellite module here. And this flat cable is the one coming from the Adalov wireless bridge connection. So this needs to go into the power over Ethernet port on this Ethernet power injector here. So I'm going to plug this into the PoE side of this connector, and then the other cable that's on this is going to connect to the mesh router over here. All right, so we are now supplying power to the bridge. Let me go ahead and plug in my satellite. Now I'm going to have to pull up my software, and we're going to see if we have a connection. All right, so in my particular case, it turns out not to be quite plug and play, and that's because I'm not using the same default network address that the bridge modules default to. So they're using a 192.168.255.x network address, and I'm using a 192.168.1.x network address. So I need to change the IP addresses of both the master and the slave to get it to actually communicate on my network. So what I'm going to have to do is connect a laptop to each module, and I've already done this with the master module, but I'm going to cover that with you so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to make sure I assign an IP address to each module so that it is compatible with my network addressing scheme. All right, now I've gone ahead and hard cabled my laptop directly to the master module, and I have already changed the network address on my laptop to be compatible. So to get to the web configuration, I'm going to have to type in 192.168.255 and then 101, because I'm showing channel 1 on the bottom of my master module. And that opens this little web configuration portal. So I'll use the default password of admin, and I'll log in. And the first thing I'm going to do is just click the wizard button. And I need to set up the web configuration to override the button configuration. Now, since it's the master module, it is going to act as an AP, or access point. So I'm going to give it a static IP address, and I want to change that 255 to be compatible with my network, which uses a 1. So I'm going to overwrite that to 192.168.1, and then I'm going to assign 253 in my case, and I'm going to use my default gateway of 1.1, and the same number for my DNS. So I'll go ahead and click Next. And at this point, I need to assign a password, or I can also change the SSID for both the 2.4 and the 5G networks. Now you can take the defaults here. I'm going to choose to go ahead and put a password in there. In fact, I don't show it here, but I've actually subsequently erased the 149 on that 5G ID, so it doesn't actually show up that way that you just saw. But you'll see that later when I configure the slave. Now you see I got the operation succeeded, and if I were to go over and try to refresh the browser right now, because I changed the address and I've also switched my laptop over to the original address scheme, it's going to time out on me because my laptop and the master module are no longer on the same network. So you can see we've timed out. So now I'm going to change the properties on my internet connection, and I'm going to take that 255 and switch it to 1, and I'll leave the 123 there because that's my client address. So 192.168.1 is my network address, and I'm going to click OK and save that. And now I should be able to ping that newly assigned network address on the master module, which is 192.168.1.253. Let's see if we can communicate. All right, successful replies. So we are cooking with gas. So I'm going to go ahead and connect up the slave module, and basically what I'm going to do is take a laptop, and I'm going to take the Ethernet cable off of the wireless router here, and then I'm going to configure my laptop's network address for the actual physical NIC, not the Wi-Fi. I'm going to configure it to be talking on the 192.168.255 network address. So I'll probably just put the last octet at maybe 123. And how you know the last octet of the network address or the default address on the master and the slave modules is you look at the bottom and it'll show a channel number. Now in my case, mine defaulted to channel 1. That's how they arrived. If you buy one of these, yours might default to channel 3. So in my case, since it's channel 1, the last 3 digits for the IP address on the master will start with 10 and then the channel number, right? So in my case, to access my master module will be 192.168.255.101. And then for the slave module, since it's also paired on channel 1, its default address is going to be 192.168.255.201. So the master is 10x, the slave is 20x. So that's how you know. All right, so to finish the configuration on the slave module, I've got my network cable coming in to the network card on my laptop, and this is basically going into the power over Ethernet injector and out to power the slave unit. So I basically have a direct connection to the slave unit. So as I mentioned, the default IP address for the slave unit is 192.168.255.201. So I need to go into my Ethernet card and set the properties under Internet Protocol version 4 to the same subnet. So I've got mine set up to be able to go to 192.168.255.201 so that I can communicate directly to it. Now, in my case, I have already got it set up on the correct IP address. So I don't really need to change this in my case because I already changed that 255 to a 1. So I'm on the same subnet with it as it is now. But I am communicating with the module right now. So if I open up a web browser and I'll put in my IP address of the module 192.168.1.254 is what I've named it to. And it opens up the little login here. And I'll take the default password since I haven't changed it yet. And now if I go into Wizard, I can set up web configuration, right? And if you recall, I set up the master as an access point, so AP. Well, the slave needs to be set up as a station because it's going to be a station to the access point. So I'm going to pick station and tell it its role is going to be, or mode is going to be bridge. And then I have to give it an IP address, which I have already done. So 1.254, that's on my existing network's IP range. And I've set the gateway to 1.1, which is my gateway address, and DNS also to 1.1. So I'm going to click next. In this case, I don't need to change that. Now on the WLAN settings here, you want to click 5G, and then we're going to scan and try to find the SSID of the master bridge module. So it should show up here somewhere. And it's showing up here as CPE 5G 5G. So that's what I had set it to. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to give it my password that I configured, and I'm going to click next. All right, so there's my 5G connection, apply. Operation succeeded. So now let's disconnect from the laptop, and I'm going to reconnect my Wi-Fi access point. And now I have to re-enable my Wi-Fi here. Turn that back on. And it's looking for Wi-Fi. It's saying ReRayNet is now connected. And it looks like we're back online. So let's do a speed test. And let's just see how we do. Now this is an older Wi-Fi connection or Wi-Fi protocol. So this is not going to be maximum speed. I'll retest this on my phone in a minute to see if we do any better. But I've got the barn doors all closed. I've got the room closed. We're getting 300 megabits, even though I'm inside my little Faraday cage. Let's see how we do upload. And 275 megabits upload. So I can absolutely work with that. But I suspect my performance could be a little bit better. So let me try running a speed test on my phone and see if I get a different result. So I'm getting 391 megabits download and probably, well, 288. So just slightly better performance versus the laptop. But yeah, that's totally doable. And this is inside with all the metal doors closed. So this point-to-point wireless bridge has solved my issue. All right, so this wireless bridge, even though I'm only using it for about 250 feet of distance between my house and my barn, It has a maximum, at least theoretical range of about 1.9 miles, as long as you have decent line of sight. And by the way, you could actually have multiple slave units reporting back to a single master module. So if you had more than one building that you wanted to beam your Wi-Fi internet access to, you can certainly do that with this particular setup. Okay, so relatively simple setup as you saw, and as long as you have a basic understanding of what the what the setup is for the slave and the master units in terms of access point versus station scenarios, those are the things that tripped me up initially. I didn't understand the terminology and how it applied to what I was doing. So hopefully the way that I presented this should give you the confidence to be able to go in and set one of these up for yourself without too much trouble. So the cost on this thing, if you look on Amazon, I think it's $219.99, but I did manage to score a 15% off coupon from Adalov, and I think that brings the price down to about 187 bucks, so well under that $200 mark. So for about $187, pretty good deal. And I think that coupon is probably good through beginning of September timeframe. I'll have to put that down in the description below if I can figure that out. So if you do have any questions about this, leave those down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to try to answer this for you. So yeah, hopefully you found it useful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up. I'd very much appreciate that. Thanks for spending some of your time with me on this video. I hope you'll come back and join me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.